Welcome to part 2 of my YouTube podcast on the thrilling journey of a startup. In today's episode, you'll get exclusive insights directly from the founders themselves on how they stayed motivated during challenging times, discover their valuable learnings on seeking funding, and their approach on how to find talents and how to build a high-performing team. Don't miss out on this first-hand account of the startup world. Join me now and let's dive into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. Welcome to Connecting the Dots, where I bridge the gap between banking, business, and IT, while sharing my 3 decades of financial sector experience and nearly 10 years of working with startups. By subscribing to my YouTube channel, you'll gain fresh perspectives and thought-provoking content on how the financial world operates across borders. More specific on fintech startups, geopolitics, China, and Brazil. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Now, get ready for the next adventure with this promising fintech startup based in Switzerland. Don't miss out on this captivating story of innovation and determination.
Welcome to the second part of this startup journey. Wait, funny enough, a startup that is called Journey. So Nomen is Omen with Nick and Wins. Last time we talked about the goals you have for the next 4 months. Yeah. So maybe let's review the most important ones. So if I remember correctly, you had like 3 main things, I believe. You wanted to rebuild your website. You wanted to grow your team, and you wanted to close the pre-seed funding, right?
That's right.
Where are we at? So it's like the goal was for 4 months, so not necessarily everything needs to be completed, but where are you at?
Well, I mean, some of the things that you mentioned were actually goals that we set in the near term. But, before we get into that, thanks so much for having us again. Super excited that we completed another masterclass with Tenity and that we sort of get to use their venue for this interview. Now to the goals. As you mentioned, we set a couple of goals last time, both on a 4-month view, but also sort of a 4-week view. The way we've progressed over the last couple of weeks is that we are ahead of schedule on some, on track with a few, and a few of them were slightly behind schedule as well. So, as I think about the ones that we're ahead of schedule on, web development and our general product build is something that we've been doing very well at. So our tech lead has been coding out the whole platform very quickly, and he's actually tracking ahead of schedule. Our plan there is to have a completed sort of initial version of the product by the end of May. In terms of on track, both the hiring and fundraising parts were on track. So since we last spoke, we actually onboarded a marketing lead to help us with sort of B2C communications and marketing, as well as waitlist management. So that's something that we had planned. We're also looking at making a few other hires that are yet to be confirmed. And fundraising, as anticipated last time, we're now in the final stages of closing out our round, which we're super excited about. In terms of one other area that wasn't a goal, but we are also progressing very quickly on, which we're very excited about, is partnerships with mortgage brokers, with other corporate partners that will enable us to grow quicker. That's not a concrete goal we had set last time, but we've seen a lot of progress there over the last 4 weeks. And quite frankly, a lot of the hypotheses that we had set back then have been validated, if not outperformed. So we're super excited about that as well.
You talk about excitement. So we have not met like in person for about 1 month. Yeah. So within that period, what was your number one highlight?
I think it's I think there have been many highlights in this sort of a journey, no pun intended, right? Both in-person highlights and sort of behind the scene highlights as well. And it's what Vince has said. The highlights have been getting a lot of our initial sort of theses validated by sort of external partners. It's really bringing on board a whole wide variety of partnerships that we've agreed on, and really having a sense of fulfillment that we've gotten by seeing sort of the customer sort of proposition continuously develop, both with feedback from customers, both with sort of insights from other co-founders and mentors such as yourself. We've had a couple of sessions in between since we've been here. And it's been really just that sort of upward progression that we've been looking forward to, and it's been materializing now, which we're really super grateful for. I guess the other highlights that we've been experiencing as well have really to do with being here in Kennedy. I kind of alluded to it last time of why we chose Kennedy, and it's like the ecosystem that you have here. And it very much is an ecosystem. Vince and I are really learning through the process of osmosis. And what I mean by that is by just being in an environment with other founders, hearing how they do things, hearing how they problem solve, having them critique our approaches to things as well has been just invaluable when it comes to, bringing things back to the drawing board and further building on it.
Was there also a number one low light?
I don't think so. I think if there's anything low, I would say it's we like the master classes. They're very intense. They're very sort of time consuming. It almost feels that sometimes we have to take a step back and really just let all the information just sink in and allow us to process it. But nothing outright there that I would classify my experience as a low.
I guess just to add to that point, I agree with Nick. There's not one moment in time that I can point to, but as a founder, what we've learned the hard way, and I'm sure all founders will learn, is that you have to sort of accept rejection. It's no longer a low light because you get used to it. So from that perspective, it's not one singular moment. But of course, we had conversations that didn't go our way.
Well,
Whether it be with investors, with partners, and certainly over the last few weeks, we've had a few of those that didn't go our way either.
Yeah.
But I think that's just part of doing business. So
that's a good one, because that kind of leads me to my next question. These rejections, as you say, it's normal. Last time I asked you what your motivation was to leave your well-paid job and really initiate a startup. Now I would like to dig in deeper and ask you, like, how you keep your motivation, what keeps you motivated during these times of rejections, and then maybe things which won't work. So what keeps you driving, and what do you do that also maybe in some lowlights, but still will keep you driving?
you want to go first?
no, please.
Sure. I think as I continue building sort of our proposition with Vince, it's a real purity of purpose that we have. We have a single goal, and our goal is to really change the way sort of renting works, make home ownership accessible, and it's having that sort of outlook as our North Star, and anchoring our vision towards that. So even though you do experience a full range of human emotion on a day-to-day basis, the other founders out there listening to this will probably relate. It's, even though you go through your highs and your lows, you're still working towards that sort of idea of what you're trying to achieve. And having a great co-founder helps as well. He's not just a co-founder; he's like a co-therapist. Having him, just supporting each other. That's been a really, really good sort of driving focus as to how to keep on, trudging on with our mission.
Right. And we actually didn't coordinate our answers on this, but I'm going to say something similar, but take a different angle from it. So for me, it's the same. It's the ultimate goal of what we're trying to achieve that keeps me going. And it's the mission. But what I mean with mission is not just the company mission, which is extremely important, but it's our personal mission as entrepreneurs. So for me specifically, what that means is I want to build a category defining company with a sustainable business model that would survive whether Nick and I are still with the business or not. And having that goal in mind every day, and every time we sort of face a challenge, understanding that it's sort of part of the bigger picture of trying to build this category defining company, and that building category defining companies inherently come with challenges. Understanding that really helps me get through tough times. And as Nick very aptly pointed out, having the right team, having the right co-founder is just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think nothing comes without sacrifice, and the sacrifices you're making right now will lead to something greater. So,
right. Yeah. So I like what you said, that you pointed out that it's also your personal vision, because personally, I believe, of course, you need to have a company vision and mission, but your personal vision maybe is a little bit different than Nick wants. So I believe personally that you need to also have your personal vision, and that ideally needs to be aligned with your company vision. So which seems to be very much the case on your side. Great. Talking about challenges, you mentioned before your closing of your pre-seed round. Can you tell us a little bit more? How did that work? Was it like I remember Walt Disney once said like he had to go to 200 different investors, people to finally to be rejected 99 times, and then the 100th time he got it. So how was it? You know, did he get a lot of rejections? Did you have to send out a lot of pitch decks? Did you have to pitch in person? I mean, how did it work? How much time did it take? How was it?
A lot of time. I think it's like you say, you know, you get rejected a lot, and I think everyone needs to take it with a massive, you know, just keep your head high. The first few will sting, but then you just realize that it's a very sort of formulaic approach, and you really need to, at least the experience that we've gone through, we found it very valuable in mapping our entire investor universe, understanding who to approach, who not to approach. Like clearly, if you're raising a pre-seed, you won't go to a Series A exclusive fund. It's been a very wild journey. You could probably describe it as a roller coaster. We've gotten close. We got close to some, only to did not make it over the line towards the end. But we finally got there with a couple of very cool partners. We're in the midst of closing it out, so I won't say the names yet or disclose too much. Maybe in the next episode we can talk about it. But I think everyone going into this needs to understand that it is not a process that just takes 4 weeks. It will take some time, 2 to 3 months, be it 3 to 4 to 6 months. It doesn't really have a preset defined category, a preset defined timing. But you just need to go into it with your eyes wide open that it is an exhausting task, but it is a task that needs to be done. And the more prepared you go into it, the better your outcome will be. And that's how we've approached it. And it's worked out so far pretty well for us.
And you know, just to add to that, I think what some entrepreneurs underestimate is also thinking and speaking like a VC. You know, we're always taught to think like our customers. In the case of pitching for investment, our customer is a venture capitalist or is an angel investor. And especially in the case of VCs, they need to make certain types of returns, which means that your business profile and your ambition has to match the returns that they're making. And typically the returns that they're trying to make on a VC investment are not the same as, with a mature company where growth is slower. So understanding that mindset and making sure that you speak VC was a lesson that we learned the hard way, but I'm happy we did learn it.
Got there.
Yeah.
How did you select these investors? Was it just like who comes first serves first? I mean, just we need the money and we need this much money to have a runway, or were there other criteria?
Yeah. So, as Nick alluded to, we did sort of an extensive investor mapping before we even started the fundraising process. We wanted to learn about the entire universe of VCs in Europe and in the US as well, who we wanted to speak to, who we thought we were less relevant. And we sort of filtered them by their geographic area focus, the sector area focus, stage area focus to see that if it's a good fit. And then we found that even when it's a good fit, very often there's other reasons that you don't know about that they'll reject you for. For example, they want to see more traction, or they have a portfolio company that operates in a similar space, so they feel conflicted. So at the end of the day, I think there's two main approaches that we've learned by speaking to a lot of founders. First of all, there's the broad-based approach of speaking to as many investors as possible, because you never know which investor might be a good fit.
Yeah.
Or the very targeted approach, which is to say, I know exactly the 10 investors I want to speak to, and I'm not going to speak to anyone else before I speak to them. We took the former approach, so we spoke to a lot of people, not always because we thought they'd be necessarily a good fit as an investor, but because we wanted to speak to everyone, get to know them, build our network, and you never know where those conversations can take you. Certainly, the investors that we got in the end are fantastic partners, and we're super happy about them, but they're not necessarily the ones that we would have expected at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. And someone very wise in this sort of startup process once told me, a very seasoned founder, that as a founder, you're always fundraising. So even when you're not deliberately speaking to investors, just have these conversations with other VCs. Try to understand and triangulate what they look for at the next stage, what they want to see in terms of your growth, even though you haven't pitched them, you're not pitching for them, because it's these like sort of small little things you do that can help tailor your approach to when you get ready to start raising capital again.
Another goal you had was growing your team. So if I remember correctly, you're now 5 guys, including yourself. How did you find those people, right? Because already now, like in the economy, we have often a shortage of specialists, and you will compete with Google on the IT side or with other banks and whatever. And I guess you cannot pay the same salary and such. So how did you get, I mean, where did you get them and how did you convince them?
Yeah, no, I mean, as you rightly say, sort of hiring is such an important part of a founder's job. I think as a founder, if you do nothing else, you should be focused on fundraising and hiring. Those are the two things that you cannot outsource. Everything else you can find sort of the best people to do, but those are two areas that will always be your responsibility. As we thought about hiring, what was super important to us is alignment with our vision and mission. So again, our company's mission and vision and mission, as well as our own mission and vision. So to make sure that they're sort of aligned in terms of the working style that they like to do and their long-term goals. Concretely, what that means is that we designed sort of a very extensive interview funnel that we sort of go through with each one of our candidates that test their personal fit, test their competency for the role. Third stage is testing their fit with other people in the team. So asking them to do interviews with other members of the team. And finally, we typically do an in-person session just to get to know them even a bit better before making an absolute final decision. We've used both LinkedIn as well as recruiters to hire people. So primarily we use LinkedIn in sort of organic channels where you don't have to pay a recruiter. But we found that for certain competencies, it's a bit more difficult to hire on LinkedIn, specifically anything related to engineering or hiring a tech lead. Our personal experience was that it's not straightforward to hire these people on LinkedIn. And we actually used a recruiter to find our tech lead, which worked excellently for us. But equally, we've heard a lot of founders give very bad stories on sort of working with recruiters. So it's kind of a mixed experience.
Yeah, I think just a small soft mention. I think our team, we really appreciate the trust they put in us as founders, and we'd be sort of foolhardy to say that we would be where we are without their support. They've been absolutely fantastic in building this proposition. So I think it's a very core part of any founding team is to make sure you have that founder team fit. So it's key.
Follow-up question here. As I understand, as you also said, you're very close. You've known each other for a long time, worked together and such. So that's of course very, very important to have like two strong guys closely connected who are the co-founders. How do you limit the risk that other people in your team feel excluded because you're so close, you're your circle? And
that's a good point. Yeah.
That's a really good question. I don't. We'd have to ask our team to see whether we've actually figured it out. And it's definitely something we'll spend time on after the session thinking about. I suppose for us, it's, we're a bit old school in this regard, but we still want our team to come to the office in person at least a few days a week. I don't know if we'll keep that up forever, but it's certainly a policy that we're implementing right now for this very reason. I think it's so hard to build culture if you're only seeing each other on Zoom. And I think we've navigated that fairly successfully. I do think that our team members feel integrated with us as well as with each other, but there's still a lot of work to do. And I think the real challenge comes when we grow the team even more, because when we're at this family stage, below 10 people, it's easy to have a personal connection with everyone. But once you're 20 people, 50 people and more, it'll be very difficult for us as founders to keep that personal touch with each individual. And I think to a certain extent, while you have to have a positive culture, inevitably you will not have the same degree of connection with every employee that you have. And I think that's just something you have to accept as a founder, and just make sure that your company still works.
We do fun stuff. We're going zombie shooting, VR zombie shooting on Thursday. So it's also like building like an out of office culture that we try to do as well.
That's a good one. Talking of shooting, one last question. This week you killed a cow, Nick. So how
I
you
killed
feel
a cow? Oh, I did
that?
kill a cow. I'm so sorry, 1080 guys. I please don't take it out of our funding. I felt bad, but I guess if there's a startup analogy here, be aware of your surroundings. I certainly wasn't. Yeah, I think Vince can replace that for me as a good co-founder. Should.
He
So
killed a fake cow.
I killed a
by the way.
fake cow.
Dear
So-
listeners.
Exactly. For any like vegans or vegetarians out there, I did not physically murder an animal. Like, let's just make that clear. I still feel bad though.
Well, we also can say now, like, the cow is dead, long live the unicorn.
Yes, exactly.
I like that. We're gonna
Unicorn
use that
rises.
phrase.
So, Nick, Vince, thank you very much for this second podcast, and we're looking forward to a third and to a fourth podcast to join you, to follow your journey, and looking forward to receive you again, like in about 1 month's time. So,
Us too.
Vince, Nick, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Do you have burning questions for this innovative company? Post them in the comments below, and I'll make sure to ask them in the future podcasts. Don't miss out on this unique opportunity to gain insider knowledge and be a part of the conversation. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and join us on this thrilling ride.